Hello, everyone. My name is Spencer Wallace. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We have a good one for you, as always. On the show today, we have some really kind of remarkable stuff coming out of China, where after a meeting with President Xi, Biden has hailed talks on fentanyl and communication. We get into some of the latest remarks as the relations may be looking up for probably one of the biggest countries in the world. Also continuing updates on the crisis in Gaza of Israel's making here, as Israel rejects just recently the UN Security Council resolution on Gaza, which is probably one of the most milquetoast resolutions they could have possibly produced, and the whole hospital fiasco. We'll get into it. And the squad, they apparently are really set up for some of their toughest primary challenges yet, according to some new reporting in Slate, which is very interesting and important. We get to all that. We have a great show for you today, as always, and I do not want to waste any time to get into it. All right, so start out with some pretty interesting and then pretty important news coming out of China at the moment. Biden has just been to China and has spoken with President Xi. See, according to Peter Baker, the big kind of foreign policy man over at the New York Times, President Biden said on Wednesday that his talks with President Xi Jinping brought important progress in stabilizing the relationship between the two major powers, and vowed that the two leaders would try to resolve future disagreements by picking up the phone rather than pushing their nations off to the edge of conflict. Emerging from hours of talks with President Xi outside of San Francisco, Biden told reporters the conversation had been the most constructive and productive between the two, and announced modest agreements to resume military communications and combat the spread of fentanyl that's killed many thousands of Americans. But they produced no major breakthrough and left many issues unresolved. We're in a competitive relationship, China and the United States, Biden said at a news conference in Woodside, California. But my responsibility is to make the rational and manageable make it this rational and manageable so it doesn't result in conflict. That's what I'm all about. That's what this is about, to find a place where we can come together in our mutual interests. I think, this is, incredibly good to see. But of course, like all of this, it just cannot be the first step, in any way in this situation. So I think, we're going to have to see, a lot more stuff. We're going to have to see, in terms of any sort of secure, comfortable, relationship. But I think that's pretty much unimaginable, because there is, that really kind of deeply driven competitiveness and just the, credit. And I don't say this in the, at all, I must be clear, in a negative or judgy way, but they really have, exploited some of the worst mistakes of American economic policy for their own benefit. The Chinese have, and they have done it to, really some of pretty much the, greatest boost in, human prosperity for the most amount of people, probably up there in terms of just human history from start to current. We're still going. So that is something that it's just really kind of part of the basic relationship ever since China started its really great incredible period of modernization, really in the mid 2000s to late 2000s to today. It has been an absolutely incredible development, and that is something that largely has come as if you think about the time, look at just what the United States, what happened in the United States in 2008, what happened to China in 2008, and what directions that they were put in. I think that is a very, very indicative picture, and if they may. They have certainly played tough. There's no denying that. But I think that is, as it's any country would, in any other situation. So I think it is pretty foolish to assume otherwise. It seems there are going to be a competitive relationship, but I think it is very, very clear that there are, they're making efforts. There is, at least conservative efforts on both sides to limit the potential for hostilities, which is incredibly encouraging thing. It's, it's really not something that I was something that I was, quite surprised to see, because it was like nothing at all really compared to what we have heard in the past. And it was, in terms of, the really increasing belligerent rhetoric, Trump Trump starting it and Biden really carrying it up through it for the much of his administration. And I really would like to know more about what changed. It's something around, of course, the common issue of, fentanyl, people, China wanting to, play, just essentially hand the U.S. a, easy thing to say progress was made under. I don't really know, but I think you also have to certainly look at this as a piece of very, very good news, because, it really, if you look at the kind of uniparty establishment consensus on China, it was definitely not looking good, to say the least. So just really wanted to highlight that important piece of news. But that pretty much is, unfortunately, the long and the short of it. A lot of stuff was left out, but it did seem to be a very, very productive meeting coming in. All right, so we do have to get to our next story, and that is some of the latest coming out of Gaza at the moment. And it has been an absolutely crazy day. So some major policy changes, some major precedents were shifted in terms of the UN. Some major, lies were perpetrated by Israel. What else is new when it comes to the Shifa Hospital? So we're going to get into all of that. With the United States, the UK, and Russia abstaining, the UN Security Council has passed a resolution calling for extended humanitarian pauses, essentially just saying, make them, I don't know, was that 6 hours instead of 4? And apparently, Israel is not violating that at all. Of course, they are. There's Palestinians saying, Gazans really saying, during these supposed 4-hour pauses, which, you should be able to have a 4-hour pause in, 24 hours a day of bombing. And that shouldn't be such a objectionable thing, but they apparently have not been able to even stick to that. So the Palestinian Foreign Ministry has warned against Israel's misleading fabrications about Al-Shifa, where thousands are taking shelter. This is, of course, the Al-Shifa Hospital, where Israel has just launched another raid, according to Doctor inside the hospital, as Hamas has rejected claims of weapons being uncovered during the hours-long raid on Wednesday. We'll get into that more in a moment, but first, kind of going through the general updates. There's also kind of been a suspicious event, shall we say, in a car crash near the Israeli embassy in Tokyo. An official at the Israeli embassy said the matter was under police investigation and declined further comment, according to the Reuters news agency. A police spokesperson said they were unable to comment at the moment as well. So police officers blocked off the area around where a black car with damage to its front headlights and panel appeared to have crashed, while the road was strewn with debris, according to a Reuters witness from the scene. This is, presumably just outside the Israeli embassy. So several pro-Palestinian demonstrations have been held outside Israeli embassies around the world in recent weeks, including in Tokyo, in protest to Israel's bombardment of the Gaza Strip. A month ago, shortly after Israel began its bombardment of Gaza in retaliation for October 7th attacks by Hamas on Gaza, a group of pro-Palestinian protesters faced off with police outside the Israeli embassy in Tokyo. So there you go. There is a site, a hotbed site, but we'll see if maybe that crash was just a mistake. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on, I think, for the future. The Jewish Voice for Peace lobby group has accused police in Washington, D.C. of violently assaulting peaceful protesters rallied for outside the Democratic Party's National Committee to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. So really some pretty incredible stuff here. We are seeing, you can go watch this video on their Twitter account, and they're kind of outside singing, in a very kind of peaceful way, but definitely, obstructing the borders, which I think is, not a crime at all, because it's, this is taking place in the night and no one's there. They're, blocking the entrance, whatever, and there's like candles. It's clearly a somber scene. And then you look in the next video, and police are very much trying to clear them out of the area in a violent way. So definitely some disturbing stuff there as well. Israel has really kind of a really remarkable scene. Again, we should get this played out here. With this, catch you guys up on the UN situation. So this is a report here by Mohammed Jamjoom from Occupied East Jerusalem for Al Jazeera. We heard as well from the Israeli Foreign Ministry. They issued a statement on to local outlets in Israel. This is in response to the resolution. We'll find out what they said in a moment. So that UN resolution essentially calling for a humanitarian pause, and really kind of a shocking development. The U.S., UK, and Russia abstained, and they did not use their veto power for the Security Council to protect Israel, as they pretty much always have done in every other situation. So that is a very remarkable development, showing that I was watching the speech of the ambassador for the UN. I think her name is Ambassador, I want to say Linda Thomas or something. I don't know, but she was essentially going on and on about, this doesn't condemn Hamas enough. This doesn't do, but they didn't vote for it, but they abstained. So their vote was allowed to pass because, if one vote against it, if it's a U.S. vote, will tank the whole thing just because of the way the Security Council is set up. But still, the fact that they, even, it's an indication really of the fact the situation is getting bad enough, and the resolution also was getting, watered down enough, and they kind of just happened to meet in the middle enough for a place. So it was comfortable. So the U.S. did not have to use its veto power. This comes again as Israeli raids are underway in the West Bank. And according to some reports, according to the Palestinian news agency Wafa, specifically, Israeli forces have launched a second raid at the Shifa Hospital in Gaza City, entering the medical complex in the early hours of Thursday. It's about dawn Thursday, so probably 4 or 5 hours ago. It's about 11:20 as I'm recording this here now. So Israeli forces raided the surgical building and the emergency building, according to the Palestinian news agency Wafa. The buildings house patients and medical staff. The Israeli army has confirmed it's conducting this operation inside the hospital. This was, further reports apparently have indicated that medical sources telling Wafa this specifically, that the Israeli army installed facial recognition cameras and electronic gates in the hospital courtyard, and demolished and bulldozed the gates that I've seen from multiple people, online and various sources. And of course, you can never have any mainstream sources on this because Israel will stop it. While apparently strip searching Palestinians in the medical complex. According to the report, doctors, patients, and displaced people were also subjected to investigation. They have reportedly arrested a number of displaced people and families of those who were killed and wounded or who were seeking shelter there. But Al Jazeera, they're saying, cannot confirm the details of this report. Meanwhile, 50 have been killed in an Israeli airstrike on a mosque in central Gaza. Probably something to do with Hamas there, in some way. Apparently, we've heard a little bit about this ceasefire deal. Maybe it's exchanging all children for children, women for children on the Israeli side, and just all the women and children on the Hamas side are going to be freed. This being brokered by Qatar and U.S. And apparently that has been stuck on the number of days that Israel wants to give Gaza to recover. Sources told the news website that Qatar has presented Israel with 2 proposals from Hamas, one of which will see the release of 18 captives in return for a 3-day ceasefire. The other involving gradual release of a large number of hostages over several days in exchange for a pause in fighting and release of a number of Palestinian women and children. We don't know that day. They've rejected the first offer, which is a 3-day ceasefire. So if they're rejecting 3 days, they're probably not going to go for a long time, and has specified that is not willing to accept longer than a 3-day ceasefire, while Hamas wants 5 days for that second option. One of the sources added that the difficulties contacting Hamas leaders in Gaza had also slowed negotiations, as well as Israel's assault on the Shifa Hospital. Probably, being it's Al Jazeera, you could bet it's the Qataris that are telling them that, which is, again, another layer of evidence to add to the high pile that Israel is, so concerned about A, the hostages, and B, bringing peace in general. So, some interesting stuff from, again, Mohammed Jamjoon here when I get to this. He says, this is a statement he quotes from the Israeli Foreign Ministry to local outlets in Israel. Israel calls on the Security Council and the international community to insist on the release of all Israeli abductees quickly, as the resolution stipulates. We expect the Security Council to unequivocally condemn Hamas. And it's like, they're lecturing the UN Security Council here about being terrorist supporters. It's like they will call anyone anything at this point. It's just, just a shamelessness based on, just being in a bubble or not knowing how they look. I just don't know. But I feel like, even like less and less people, even in the U.S., are buying this stuff right now, which is really remarkable to see. There's no room for prolonged humanitarian truces as long as 239 abductees are in the hands of Hamas terrorists. And the big question is with regards to the pressure that the U.S. is going to bring down to bear on them. And honestly, again, I wouldn't really be holding your breath. Like, are they really going to get on Israel for like 4 hours versus 6 hours? I really don't think so. I hate to say it. Here is another great clip. This is Al Jazeera speaking to Mustafa Barghouti, the General Secretary of the Palestinian National Initiative, about the Israeli army claims that it found Hamas items at Al-Shifa Hospital. And so this is how he sees it. We'll play a little bit from him here real quick.
Bring in Mustafa Barghouti now. He's the Secretary General of the Palestinian National Initiative. He joins us live from Ramallah. A very warm welcome to you. So, as you mentioned there have been a series of claims made by the Israeli military regarding military hardware that they say they have found inside Al-Shifa Hospital. How does this affect how we view the ongoing conflict there in Gaza?
Well, first of all, let me say that after the scandal in Al-Quds Hospital and in Rantisi Hospital, where Israel failed really to provide any evidence that hospitals are used for military purposes, what's happening now in Shifa Hospital is what I would call the mother of all scandals. Because really they claim that this is the headquarters of Hamas and that there are weapons there and that Hamas fighters are holding people hostages. What did they find? Nothing. The Israeli Channel 13, and that's an Israeli channel, said that this is one of the largest failures of the Israeli intelligence. And of course, it's a failure of the American intelligence, who were just repeating the same lies that Israelis are telling. 18 hours in the hospital after invading it without nothing. And all they have shown is a Kalashnikov and a laptop that they could have put there easily and claim that it was found there. But this shows
again,
why
reports in that original video that was still logged in. That laptop was apparently it was like open in the video. It's just like, again, it's like, how do you know the password of a Hamas laptop? What the heck?
For an independent international commission to come to the hospital and investigate the situation. But Israel doesn't want that because they know that they are lying, and they're consolidating this lie by continuing this claim that they need more days of occupying a hospital to find out evidence of something that, of course, doesn't exist.
Again, the way we saw it with with this hospital here, you would think that, the videos, the ridiculous, frankly, now it seems even more ridiculous now that this is what they've seen or what they've released here. But like, they have put forth they put forth like the most BS of really of all situations, because I think we should really if you're obviously don't do this while you're watching the podcast or driving, whatever, but try and find the video of the IDF and what it may be a little bit, I don't know exactly what search terms will get you it, but it was a video they posted, maybe a week ago or so. Like, this is what it's like under the Al-Shifa Hospital. And they start off with this like graphic animation, kind of like a video game style of this, almost like a video game cutscene where they like look up out over the hospital, show the front facing, front of the building, and then they sink underneath the ground, and then there's just like, it's out of District 13 of the Hunger Games, like 4 or 5 layers of tunnels, all with armed Hamas terrorists. It's like, and apparently now they're saying, when this has not materialized, the best they could do is, a bag with some guns, maybe like 3 AK-47s and like 5 hand grenades or something like that is the best they can find. Now they're literally, literally swear to God, saw this tweet from the IDF communications post that, or public relations account or whatever. It was that the doctors delayed the Israeli Defense Forces for 3 days, and in that time they covered the entrances to the tunnels with cement. It's like, are you like, how stupid do you think we? It's like, are you really expecting us to believe this, or is this the best you have? Are you desperate? Like, I'm really just confused. Like, this is just like pathetic. It's just like I feel it's just like the just blatant falling apart of the propaganda, and the fact that they've just so failed to really defend themselves in the information war, and it really is getting through. I think not just because of them, but being bad, but also because of a variety of different sources. But it's just really, really remarkable to see. I mean, Biden's still pushing the lie of the line, Freudian slip, of the Israelis on Shifa Hospital. But meanwhile, interesting stuff here from the Human Rights Watch organization have said the UN Security Council resolution calling for urgent and extended humanitarian pauses in corridors throughout Gaza and the Gaza Strip, should be a wake-up call for Israel. As the U.S. finally stopped paralyzing the Security Council on Israel, so Palestine could, in Palestine, so this resolution on the plight of children in Gaza could move forward, should be a wake-up call to Israeli authorities, said HRW's UN Director Louis Charbonneau. Global concern, even among Israel's allies, is strong. Omar Shakir, HRW's Israel-Palestine Director, said the world must act to prevent further mass atrocities. Will they? We will see. As one hospital is apparently still admitting the sick and wounded in war-torn northern Gaza. Apparently, according to this, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says in its Gaza report, but Gazans fleeing south are reporting the presence of dead bodies in the street. In northern Gaza, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are either unwilling or unable to move south amid, again, thousands have moved south, and some even have gone back, but hundreds of thousands are still in the north, where it is hell, and some would say worse than hell at this moment, are either unwilling or unable to move south and remain amid the Israeli ground invasion, struggling to secure food and water to survive. An up-to-date death toll in Gaza was unavailable for the 5th consecutive day on Wednesday due to collapsing communications services at hospitals in the north. And, when they tally this up, it's going to be an estimate. There's no way they can know the exact death toll. Then this last death toll was 11,078 last reported on November 10th. And, we got to assume that those are far, far higher at this point in time. So casualties reported as Israel has targeted the north-central Gaza Strip at dawn in the Nusrat refugee camp. And apparently in the vicinity of Gaza's petrol station, which houses 10 displaced people, or dozens, of displaced people, leading to the death and injury of several people, according to the Palestinian news agency Wafa. And, it's not even like they're necessarily trying to shut off communications, but they don't allow fuel in, so it is just impossible for any, information to get through. All right. And okay, this is really where we got to get into it, because this is a great piece here from Electronic Intifada, Maureen Claire Murphy on Electronic Intifada, talking about this Israel whole situation. So we'll lay it out for you. This is what happened when they went in the hospital and did almost, I don't can tell if it was an SNL skit or some sort of just Curb Your Enthusiasm sketch. I don't even know, but it was not convincing, is what it was. Of the there was no Hamas command center, 3 layers deep, or even 1 layer deep, that was clear or visible to see whatsoever. Okay, so she writes here: Israel raided Shifa Hospital in Gaza City at dawn on Wednesday after encircling and besieging it for days, launching heavy attacks in the area. Troops had reportedly withdrawn from hospital buildings and redeployed to Shifa's gates on Wednesday evening. Late Wednesday night, Adnan al-Bursh, the head of the orthopedic department at Shifa Hospital, told Al Jazeera Arabic that Israeli bulldozers had begun raising the area around the southern gate of the medical complex. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, hailed the military conquest of Gaza's largest hospital. Again, I feel like that is going to be something that is going to be portrayed in history. It's going to go, it's going to go down as a truly just evil on the most basic level quote. And another kind of along the lines of this one that I saw from, noted island enthusiast, Alan Dershowitz, we'll leave it at that, saying that, sometimes it's okay to bomb hospitals. He said, sometimes bombing hospitals saves lives. That's only a quote that Alan Dershowitz only a quote that Alan Dershowitz could come up with there. He says, "There is no place in Gaza we cannot reach." And that's about Netanyahu. But he says there are no hideouts, there is no shelter, or no refuge for the Hamas murderers. Well, glad you put that part in there. Otherwise, we would have thought, it would have been crazy, but we would have thought you were talking about all Palestinians there. But of course, you would never do that. But for Israel's own propaganda, published in the aftermath of the raid, shows that Netanyahu and the military's long-standing expectation or accusation that Hamas uses al-Shifa to shield its command center is a deadly lie. The Israeli military published a 7-minute one-shot video purportedly showing the discovery of Hamas weapons found at the hospital's MRI center. So again, they did it like 12 hours later, when they put everything in place, they were just like, oh wait, now if we do a one-shot video, then no one can say that we manipulated anything and we will be bulletproof, which is kind of funny to think. So the military's footage showed rifle parts wrapped up in a fabric in a small closet, and a spokesperson holding up a backpack gesturing towards a small laptop computer and picking up a stack of CDs. Apparently, the Hamas terrorists are not allowed to have a laptop, or just really what the people of Gaza. So the original video was soon deleted, and the military eventually published a version of the video that is around 20 seconds shorter than the first iteration, truncating its claim that the laptop showed an image of an Israeli soldier rescued by troops, which was pretty BS, clearly to everyone. So I think they talking about no cuts, no edits, the undeniable truth, which is that was the caption that they published in the first video, which they had to delete, edit, and then post again, which is very, very funny. Which they again called the undeniable truth when they reposted it, edited, and corrected. So the military's footage also purportedly showed a militant's grab bag, a little militant care package there containing weapons behind an MRI machine, and just as implausibly, a bulletproof vest bearing the insignias of the military wings of both Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is really great. Apparently, they also featured some dates, some brand new Qurans, some books titled Tanks and Rush Towards Jihad and The Battlefield, as well as, they put this all in the magnetic resonance and imaging room. At least we now know what was in the clownish font English labeled boxes brought in by the invaders, is a one tweet that was cited here by the Electronic Intifada, which is a kind of funny moment. Oh yeah, so this is the IDF tweet. This is on the IDF Twitter account here. So recall last month that that Israel published an intelligence-based animation portraying a vast underground network that showed purportedly existed underneath the hospital. This is apparently what they thought. They thought in the best of faith that this existed underneath the hospital. This is so it's like they're showing the front of Al-Shifa Hospital. It zooms down, under the earth and, under the floor, and there's this, one ladder, and you see one Hamas soldier. Then there's another layer. Then there's all these lit hallways, and then there's like this chill, hangout room where there, some chairs and some computers and a big Hamas flag, like it's a college dorm room or something. But it's like that is what they expected. This is what they were priming the world to put out. And, I really don't know why they did that if they knew it wasn't going to be there, but it's just like they think that the world will report it, which in the past would have been true, just report it incredibly. But I think it's becoming less and less true. I just don't know if they realize that, which I think is very interesting and important. All right, now let's go to our last story. We talked about Rashid Tlaib. In a primary challenge, you may have thought, oh, he's just being crazy. It was just a quote, an innocuous article in the New York Times. Well, Alexander Salmon has this to say in Slate. The title here, "The Squad is about to fight for its political life." The war in Gaza set the stage for a huge primary battle in 2024. One of the biggest, bitterest, and most expensive political battles of the 2024 election cycle has emerged. The American Israel Public Affairs Committee, one of the most powerful, best influence operations in the country, is planning to go all out to knock out the famed Squad, the group of highly visible and popular progressive legislators of color, most of them women, out of office. The most outspoken and unapologetically leftist contingent of the Democratic Party in national office, the Squad has been vocal in its criticisms of Israel's retaliatory assault on Gaza following the October 7th massacre of Israelis by Hamas. Members of the group have prominently pushed a ceasefire resolution in Congress, now with 18 signatures. Their positions on the issue are hardly radical, according to a Data for Progress poll that found 66% of Americans support a ceasefire, as do 80% of Democrats. But AIPAC has trained its attention on these members to make an example of them, and has spent heavily against a few of them before. AIPAC wants to make this statement this cycle that no one is safe from their wrath, and that if you speak out, you can be targeted no matter how popular or no how many cycles of incumbent you are. Connor Farrell, president of the progressive fundraising group Left Rising, said in a phone call, "It's extremely audacious." And yeah, you can tell here they are licking their lips, they're licking their chops for the kill here. They want to make sure that nobody, next time this comes around, nobody is supporting a ceasefire resolution. Nobody even dares to open their mouth, no matter how bad the pressure is, because they know that people will, when it comes time, people will just forget about it. They'll believe the ads, whatever. And I think that's, very well could be, unless the movement that has been calling them nonstop, time and time again, over, the course of these, calling the other non-supporting ceasefire supporting Congress people nonstop over the last few weeks, comes out to support the people who actually do support a ceasefire, which I think is far more, not more important, but almost, just as important, maybe more. I don't know. It's up for debate. But as supporting or calling and hectoring and haranguing the people who don't support a ceasefire, you got to come out when people like AIPAC come for the people who take that brave stance. You have to show, I feel like, as a just general grassroots movement, that people will show up. And obviously, a grassroots movement is a bit of a stretch. I feel like at this point, it's just largely just very, pissed off people on a, very individual level, just showing, getting to the streets, showing how mad they are. But there has been an incredible number of people just even in the height of the Black Lives Matter debate. I think a big part of this was probably because Trump was, at the time in charge. People saying straight up, they are not afraid to say, some of the core Democrat, core figures in the Democratic coalition, that Joe Biden absolutely needs to get across the line. They are coming out and saying, we will remember it in 2024. We are not okay with this. And that is something that never happened in Black Lives Matter. So I think that is a huge, huge deal. And AIPAC wants to make it so that no member ever feels comfortable to do that ever again. And the way you stop that, I think, is showing up with, if you live in one of these districts, get your ass out there. I grew up next to Joanne Bowman's district, so I feel like I would be, very invested in that race. But donate to the people. This is the time, I feel like, to show up here is really the bottom line with this stuff. But there are now 7 indisputable members of the Squad, up from the original 4 elected in 2018. They are AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashid Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley. In 2020, the contingent of the progressive members of color expanded with the election of Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. Then the first male member of the group. With the 2022 midterms, with Summer Lee, could also argue that I think Delia Ramirez and Greg Cesar are kind of peripheral members. I wouldn't say really Maxwell Frost is. I think Gen Z doesn't mean you're left wing. Strongly activists allied. The Squad members are staunch advocates of progressive causes. You know them all. Green New Deal, Medicare for all, police reform, student debt relief. Critically, though, all of them rejecting big money backing, surviving on just grassroots support and small dollar fundraising. They've quickly become some of those well-known members of Congress and are quite adept at using social media. So, AIPAC has had a pretty turbulent history with them and progressives in general. In the 2022 midterms, Israel became pretty much the largest single issue outside spender in Democratic primaries via the United Democracy Project and millions more via DMFI, Democratic Majority for Israel, going up for Chantel Brown against Tina Turner, going up for Andy Levin in Michigan, who's someone who just dared to be even slightly critical of Israel as a Jewish member of Congress, was mercilessly attacked by DMFI. In 2022, AIPAC endorsed 109 Republican members of Congress who voted to overturn the 2020 election and raise millions from Trump backers like Bernie Marcus and Paul Singer. It is staffed up heavily from the far-right corners of Republican politics, and the group's digital director was just hired from the Trump's Republican National Committee just before Election Day in 2020. Already, Bush, Bowman, Lee, and Omar have drawn primary opponents for the safe blue seats in the 2024 cycle thanks to strenuous recruiting efforts by AIPAC. Surprising Tlaib hasn't gotten one yet, but Cori Bush is going to be interesting. Bowman also will be incredibly tough. Bowman probably the most clearly vulnerable person in that, it's a very, there's certain parts of his district that are very Jewish, certain parts of it that are very Black and Latino. So it's going to be a very, very interesting situation there for sure. So they've already apparently been making expensive incendiary ad buys against some of those members. Bush is going to be facing Wesley Bell, and Bowman is going to be facing Westchester County Executive George Latimer, which is going to give him a run for his money. Summerlee is facing perennial candidate Bhavini Patel. I think she's got a pretty good chance in that one. Omar is facing a rematch with Minneapolis City Council member Don Samuels. I think that, they got a wake-up call last time with how close. It was like 2 or 3% away from losing her seat. But I think she will probably pull that one out. The two I'm most concerned about are the eventual challenger for Tlaib, because I think they will go for blood on that one, and, of course, the Bowman situation. But something very, very important to keep an eye on it for sure, because these are the people we absolutely need to show up on if there's any hope at building a stronger, broader progressive movement. With that being said, we will be back on Monday. It's Newsflash.